We are almost on time. We'll call the meeting to order. As noted, we don't currently have a quorum, but we'll have Pledge of Allegiance and at least have some presentations at minimum. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Our clerk is expected to be arriving late. Assuming we get through a meeting, is someone willing to serve as temporary clerk?
I'll do it.
Okay. We can't force you by vote, so.
Oh, no, I know.
But you're willing?
I'm willing.
Would you do a roll call
Yes,
to
I
board,
will.
please?
Supervisor Milky?
Here.
Trustee Theron?
Here.
Trustee Lay? Here. Staff? Aye.
Jeff Brown, just for record, is excused. Trustee Lannon is excused. I did get a message from Treasurer Rogers. She'll hopefully be here soon, and as expected, Clerk Cody should be here hopefully soon. Thanks for doing that.
No problem.
With that, we do have some guests tonight. I'm excited. Katie Mora from Middle Michigan Development Corporation is here to do annual report. Did you have anything you want to introduce? Because you sit on the EDA board.
I do not. Thank you.
But with that, you have the floor.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. Good to see you all this evening. I wanted to first apologize. I know I had been scheduled to come and speak at a previous meeting and was unable to do so, so my apologies for that. I did hear that you were able to go on to something else that you needed to get to as a result, so I'm glad that at least worked out for that particular event after that meeting. If I've not had a chance to meet you in person, I'm Katie Mora with Middle Michigan Development Corporation. I've been there for just over 9 years and have been in the president and CEO role now for about 5 months. And during that time, it's been my real honor to be able to carry on the charge that was set forth many years ago by all of the wonderful leaders that have come before me at Middle Michigan. But really to be able to support the vibrancy and the economic vitality of the regions that we serve. Right now, Middle Michigan, we have 3 counties that we represent in our service area. It's Isabella, Clare, and Osceola counties. Really excited that our partnership with Union Township has been able to continue and be something that I always look forward to in terms of the relationships that I've built and that we've built over time. In front of you, I did get a chance to hand out our annual report from 2024, and this will serve as kind of our guide for tonight's presentation. And as I go through it, I'll try to highlight just some of the key pieces of the work that we do, just in case any of this is new. I know Jim McBride, my predecessor, used to come and present. And so hopefully some of it is familiar, but I always think that it's good to talk about some of the basics before we jump into some of the specifics, especially because over the years I think Middle Michigan has continued to evolve as an organization and not only do what we would usually describe as more traditional economic development, but really we've worked on becoming an organization that's very robust. And really look at increasing vibrancy through working with businesses of all sizes throughout our service area. So in our annual report, I'll just draw your attention to a few different spots in here. Up first, on page 1, this is our strategic plan, and so this we just updated for 2025 through 2027. It looks really similar to the one we had before. We felt that what we had for our previous strategic plan, we were still working towards many of those goals, and so kept it the same. At that point, we had added a couple of different things. Entrepreneurship was one. We also made sure that we added talent because we found ourselves as an organization getting more involved in those spaces. So 2025 and through 2027, we want to continue to keep focused on those areas. You'll see our mission and our vision, but of particular importance here are kind of those 3 pillars. So business, retention, and growth. We spend the majority of our time working with businesses that are already within our service area. So businesses that are in Union Township, we're making sure that we're visiting right alongside. Rodney is often on lots of those calls with me, and we make sure that we're checking in. We're making sure that if there's any issues that those can be addressed quickly. If there are any opportunities for growth, we're able to assist with that as well. But that really is where we spend the majority of our time. Business attraction, if we have businesses interested in coming into our area, we try to make sure that we're there, that we're present, that we can be a resource for our community partners. And through that process, we're really trying to make sure that if we have a business that's wanting to come in, that they're doing so as a good neighbor. We want them to be a good neighbor. We're excited that they have noticed that our area is a great place to be. But again, we want to try to help make sure that the connection there with our local municipality, that is something that hopefully, again, allows for just good stewardship and good presence across the board. So we do a lot of work in there when those opportunities arise. I also put under business attraction the ability to work with some of our entrepreneurs. So locally, we may have businesses that want to stay here or maybe are beginning as an idea, and we want to connect them with places locally that they can be. So we will sometimes consider that to be an attraction as well. And then community development, this can be everything from working with our municipal partners on a project that they want to get some funding for, whether that's a park, whether that's a trail system. We'll work with our partners at the state to try to assist and help to bring that funding in if we can. It also includes working with some of our downtown businesses, but also high impact corridor businesses. And so for Union Township, I think that that's really important. We're trying to make sure that when it comes to community development, that when people come into our communities, that they're seeing buildings that are full of business, that they are not vacant, hopefully, and that's something that we can assist with as well. So in a very concise way, that kind of highlights some of the key areas of focus for us as we continue to move forward as an organization. If you move to the next page, page 3 and 4, you'll see what we call the four-legged stool. And again, this just breaks down in a slightly different way some of our key focus areas. And so here's where you'll see specifically that entrepreneurship piece called out and talent called out. Again, we've just found that that's something we've been being asked to kind of serve a role in more and more, and wanted to make sure that was represented. Under talent, we're also going to kind of have childcare, housing, things that we know are kind of essential for talent. And so not necessarily labeled on the stool, but if you're wondering where that fits, that's kind of where we have that in terms of the work that we do. And then local impact. So this is for our overall region and the service area that we have, the number of visits that we've been able to do, the number of assistance that we've been able to provide to companies. We have found that particularly this last year, we've been doing more and more in terms of support for our businesses, which to me says that our businesses are continuing to find value in what we offer and are willing to partner with us and ask us for assistance. So that's a number that I personally have been excited to see continue to grow. We also had 73 site submissions this past year, which was a record for us. And that basically just means that we have sites that are ready, and we can highlight those to real estate agents and site developers who might be looking for the right community for their project. And so we're able to kind of shine the light both on that project, but also on our communities as well. And so we have never had quite that many requests before. So a lot of interested parties in our area, which has been fantastic. And then some regional impact. And I think this is really important because our organization, we serve locally, we represent at a statewide level, sometimes at a national level. But from a regional standpoint, we've been highly engaged in projects that reach beyond the Mount Pleasant, Union Township area, but also allow us to be able to really shine a light on this area through that work that we do. Everything from leading the Child Care Coalition, which we were able to do this last year and continue to do this year, to hosting legislative breakfasts with some of our legislative representatives, highlighting our local businesses, highlighting some of the programs that we've been able to do and utilize, and then participating in various summits from workforce to housing, and then continuing to serve on a variety of boards. Even though I've only been in this current role for about 5 months, I'm happy to say that I've been able to jump into many of those state leadership roles that Jim had carried. Everything from serving on the Michigan Economic Developers Association's board to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's Collaborative Development Council to the SBDC committee that kind of overlooks what they're doing across the state. So continuing to be very present at that state level, and again, in those roles, I'm really hoping that it helps to draw people back to here and really helps to elevate this area and continues to make it so that this is a place that people want to be. If we go ahead and go to page 5 and 6, we did move back into Middle Michigan Development Corporation's old home. So that is where you will find us. You can come in and visit anytime, and we'll do our best to try to assist and work with Mark and Ronnie to make sure that the needs of Union Township are being met. And then Mid-Michigan College, obviously advancing their integrated manufacturing and skilled trades lab. That will be a very important thing for our community of manufacturers as well. And so excited to see that happening and playing a role in that. If we go to the next page of 13 and 14, our Coming Home event and our 40 Under 40 initiative. Highlighting this because this is something that not everybody knows that we do, but one of the things under that talent umbrella we've been able to do year after year is host what we call a Coming Home event, and this invites graduating students from area colleges and universities to connect with area employers. It also allows for returning alumni to come back and connect with our hope of not only, hopefully connecting them with a job while they're there, but also hopefully really helping to tell the story of what they've been missing while they've been gone, hopefully encouraging them to come back to the area. And then through that, we've also launched a 40 Under 40 initiative. This year, we're hosting its own separate event because we've had such positive reviews from those who've received awards. That was the only complaint we got last year, was that we had given those out at Coming Home to highlight all the wonderful young people we have here, but they wanted their own event. So that was the feedback we got, and we ran with it. And I highlight this because I think, again, this isn't always something people realize that we do, but when we meet with companies, talent is typically the top issue that is brought up. And so we wanted to be problem solvers and be very, very proactive. And so these are a result of some of that work. And again, I think realizing that we have a lot of young professionals here and getting to celebrate them is always a great joy of mine. And then I'm going to take us to the back of the book, pages 21 and 22. And you'll see some Union Township stories featured in here. These are what we call our community wins. And we're always looking to highlight in our annual report just really wonderful things that are happening across our service area. And so there are some really great stories here of some things that we've been really excited to see. And so I hope this is something that if you haven't had a chance to read through our annual report before, that these are some stories that you can get a chance to take a look through and see some great things happening right here in Union Township. And then on page 24, just highlighting a tribute to Jim. So for those of you who knew Jim was a big Star Wars fan, and so we wanted to make sure we paid tribute to that. He was also a really big fan of putting Easter eggs in our annual reports. And so every year he would always have some small thing that he was like really excited about for people to find. And so it felt very fitting for our Easter egg to be that we made Jim a Force Ghost. And I think he would have approved. If not, I hope he'd forgive me, but we wanted to be able to pay that tribute. And that actually is the character that he was in Star Wars. So hopefully that's something that he would enjoy. But Again, I think in my role as president and CEO for Middle Michigan, I hope to carry that legacy on. I'm a very proud resident of this area, and I love these communities that I get to be a part of and represent. And so know from me that if there's anything that my office can do to better help support businesses in Union Township, that is what we're here to do, and we're happy to do that. We never meet everybody. We never get a chance to connect with every business, and so economic development is a team sport, and if there are ever opportunities for us to connect with someone you think we should connect with, let Mark, let Rodney know. They'll make sure that we're doing that. But we're excited. I'm excited to be here and to connect with all of you. And again, lots of great stories in here for you to check out, so I hope that you'll do that. The one other thing I wanted to highlight before I wrap up is something that's happening this year. So we're continuing to meet with area businesses. We're actually, this year has actually been a very busy year for us, which is exciting. But one of the things that just got announced was that we received a Trusted Connector grant from the state. And we had thrown in a few ideas, some of them that were pretty true to the work that we already do. Some of it a little bit of pie in the sky thinking, so we weren't quite sure if we would get the grant, but we found out last week that we did. And so our organization will be getting just over $300,000 to be able to work even more with our small businesses across the 3 counties that we serve. In addition to that, we also will be able to provide some facade funding for businesses that are either in a downtown or in a high impact corridor area. And so I know with the facade program that's already here, we're hoping that maybe we can kind of make some connections happen and help support the businesses through some facade improvement support. And then we also receive funding for some technology improvements for our area businesses. We'll be able to provide up to 80 businesses with some micro grants to do some technology improvements. And that's pretty broad. We're hoping that that can be everything from if they need a website, we can help them do that. If they need to update a POS system, we can help them do that. So we'll have lots of great conversations, I'm sure, on what we'll be able to do there with that. And then we'll be hosting mixers as well. So in partnership with some of our other area organizations, trying to make sure that our businesses are connected with the experts that they need to be connected with, whether that's financial, whether that's working with a marketing person, whether that's working with someone who can help them network. We're excited to try to bring more people together around our businesses so that this can really be and continue to be a place where businesses know that when I come here, I'm really well supported. And if I launch here, I'm really well supported. And if I've been here for a really long time, I'm really well supported. So across the board support for our businesses. And with that, I will wrap up my presentation. I don't know if there are questions, but I'm always happy to take questions if there are. And again, just really appreciate your time.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
So, just for the record, I sat through this presentation on the EDA, so, but I didn't have this question the first time. So on page 3, you talk about the site submissions, and early on you were talking about that.
Yeah.
Is that primarily vacant land, or would you say it's primarily developed land?
So it is primarily vacant land that is shovel ready. So something that would be pretty much ready to go for a developer who might be looking to bring something in. And so it is something that over the years that I've been at Middle Michigan, we've continued to get, I think, better and better at. And we have less and less options to present. So this is something that that Rodney and I have actually had quite a few conversations about in terms of what comes next and how can we continue to kind of evolve what we have available so that we can continue to kind of highlight this as a community to consider.
Great. So I'm sure that Rodney has discussed our need for industrial properties. So.
Yep. Yes.
this I may not be able to get an answer, but I'm curious, because maybe it's too early. You talked about the facade grant, using the grant partially for facade improvement. And as you mentioned, Union Township through our EDA offers that as well. Does that mean that, you probably won't know this yet, but does that mean that someone that's in our EDA districts could apply to both MMDC and Union Township?
We have not yet discussed all the details for
Okay,
that.
I figured it was early. You said you just got it.
However, yes, however, I don't see why not. So again, I think we have to have some additional conversations to figure out all the details. But I think if there's a way to leverage what we are able to do so that even more facade improvement can be done, I think that that's a win. So I think on our end, unless I'm told otherwise, and I could be, so don't hold me to this, but I believe on our end, we can be relatively flexible with how we kind of outline the program, and that would definitely be something that, if we're able to, I would like to be able to do that.
I figured it was too early that the conversations hadn't happened yet, but I was curious. I would agree with your sentiment, if I picked up on it properly, is that if having two sources makes them get over the hump to make the improvement, that's money well spent.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions?
So the funds to be dispersed per request is like I'm on a foundation where we give out grants and scholarships, but if people don't ask, they don't get them. So the same thing, can help, but people need to ask and then see if it's approved.
Yes, yep. We'll have to put together an application process, and then from there, we'll be working to make sure that the word about that application is out there, and then working with our partners to make sure that as many businesses as possible that would be eligible will know about it, so that we've done our due diligence of trying to make sure that everyone knows as best as possible.
Perfect.
And then from there, yes, we'll have some sort of criteria system in place
Perfect.
to help make that decision.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
with all the retention visits that they do, that is direct boots in the ground way to get that word out to some of those facilities or businesses as well.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I believe you were about 7:10 arrival?
Yes.
So note that we had a quorum. 7:08, thank you.
Thank you.
I looked up too late, and our clerk is here. We began presentations, obviously without a quorum, so we've not taken care of any real business yet.
Right.
So we're out of order just a little bit. So at this point, we've done presentations part A, but as long as we have a full board now, I'd like to step back and finish up item 4 on our agenda, which is approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion by Rogers, support by Cody. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved unanimously. That'll slide us back into presentations. Ally, the floor is yours unless our manager has anything that you'd like to add.
Just by way of introduction, before us tonight's Miss Allie Barnes. She's managing principal at Yo & Yo, who's been our external auditing firm for a number of years. You have in front of you tonight the bound copy of the audited financial statements. You have a hard copy of the presentation that Ms. Barnes will go through in a moment. And then tomorrow, I will send out to the entire board an electronic copy of the audit, as well as a few observations on my end that maybe can help direct you to significant portions of the audit for those that aren't interested in reading it from front to back. And with that, Ally?
And my feelings are not hurt in the least by that. This is why we do these presentations, to give you the 10,000-foot view, so you don't have to get all the way down in the weeds. So thank you for that introduction. So we're going to start off talking about the audit opinion. So the reason that you engage with a CPA firm is to come in and do an independent review of your financial systems and the numbers that are being presented so that we can issue an opinion on your financial statements. And so the township has received an unmodified or clean audit opinion, which is the one that you want us to give, and it's no different than you've had for the past several years. So I always like to point out a couple things when it comes to the opinion, though. I think there's a common misperception sometimes that the audit is the auditors, and really the audit is your finance team and all your department heads that have to submit information all throughout the year. It's really their responsibility to put together all of this information. We, as a kind of a clerical function, we do actually put together the financial statements, but your finance director spends a lot of time reviewing what's in those and making sure it's accurate and ties back to the township's records. And then we're only giving the opinion on those statements. So that's kind of the two areas of responsibility there when it comes to the opinion. So we're going to start off talking about general fund here at a very high level. So here we have 2024's information along with the past 4 fiscal years. So you can see that as a whole, revenue has been trending up for the township. It was down some in 2023. Between 2022 and 2023, there were some projects where you had local contribution dollars coming in to help fund some of your road projects. And so that kind of waned off in 2022, but was replaced by some other revenue. And then you can see from 2023 to 2024, the year we just looked at, there was an increase. So you ended 2024 with just over $3 million in total revenue for general fund. Kind of a new addition to the bar chart here for general fund is going to be the second category from the top, which is federal grant dollars. So there was approximately $400,000 that was recorded related to the ARPA funding within your general fund. On the expenditure side, you can see a very similar story. So we see a couple years going up, a small dip in 2023, and then expenditures increasing again in 2024. So your revenues and your expenditures are keeping pace with one another in each of these years. In 2023, there was about $2 million in total expenditures versus 2024 was about $2.25 million. And you can see within the categories you stay relatively consistent. What's there in public works really depends on the projects that you've approved for road maintenance and improvements during the year, what you've approved and then what the contractors can get done in those years. So that's where we see the most fluctuation within your general fund at the expenditure level. So after revenues and expenditures, we like to see then how those impact our change in fund balance and then our total fund balance at the end of each of these years. So the bar chart shows you the total dollar amount of fund balance for each of these years. So in 2023, you ended with $6.7 million. And then in 2024, it had increased and you ended with $7.6 million. You'll note that the majority of your fund balance is unassigned, so no restrictions on how you can use those dollars as long as you're doing so in a lawful way. So that was about $6.7 million of the total balance. That second from the top part of the chart there, it's kind of peach to me. I don't know, these colors show up differently on screen sometimes. But that kind of peach section is what we call assigned fund balance. And the majority of what is in there, we take a look at the budget that you all approve for the fiscal year you're currently operating in. And if you have expenditures that exceed revenues, we have to show a portion of your fund balance being assigned. So it's just indicating that, okay, we have all of this fund balance, but hey, we are expecting to potentially use this much of our fund balance in the next year. And that obviously can change as you get into your year and do budget amendments Just because it's here doesn't mean for sure that you will use it. And then the line going across there is the ratio of your fund balance to your expenditures. So your township has a very healthy fund balance. You're approaching the 350% line there, so you have great opportunity to really work on projects and make sure you're fiscally stable for many years to come because of that high fund balance. All right, you have another what we consider to be major governmental fund, which is your fire fund. So a few metrics here for you. We kind of take a look at in this fund, you're levying a tax and then you're paying out contracted services for your fire services here. So we want to make sure that the money coming in will be enough to cover those expenditures, and we want to make sure you have some cash on hand. So you'll see the darkest bar there is your cash balance for the last several years. You'll see that that continues to trend upwards. I'm not surprised to see that. You pay annually a fee for contract services, but on occasion, I think you also end up getting billed if there's large equipment needs, if there's fire trucks. And the cost of those fire trucks has increased exponentially. So I'm happy to see that you are maintaining a pretty high cash balance, because that will really help you when there is going to be another capital type of request coming in. So you had about 1.4 million in cash at the end of the year. Your fund balance was about 1.3 million, and then expenditures have been holding steady at 840,000. We're going to talk about some utility numbers, starting with the water fund. So what's here in the blue is your total revenues. You'll see that jumped pretty significantly this year, approaching about $5 million on the revenue side. I will note that is not all operating dollars. Within that is the 2.8 million federal grant that is going into improving your system. So we'll expect to see this up here for a couple of years while you're spending that grant, and then we should see that taper back down. But in the short term, it is higher. Your expenses then are those peach bars, and you'll see that those are holding relatively steady. You had about 1.9 million for the current year. And then within this fund, I take a look at working capital as kind of a measure of where you are versus looking at ending equity or net position, which would be similar to your fund balance in your governmental funds. So when you look at working capital, it really gives you a better idea of what you truly have available to spend on improving your system or offering additional services. So that increased as well, about 4.4 million, and part of that is going to be due to the impact of that grant and the receivable that's recorded within that. The sewer fund had revenues this year approaching 3.5 million versus expenses of 2.8 million. So again, you're bringing in enough to cover all of your expenses, which is a positive. And then this fund had an increase in working capital as well, and that working capital is at about 5.3 million. So that fund's looking healthy also. And then to wrap up, we'll talk about internal controls and compliance. You were lucky enough this year to have a single audit, so we did more work related to the federal dollars. Your finance director is so thankful this is done. She's ready to just wash her hands of us. She's like, enough questions. But we made it through the regular portion of the audit and the single audit, and your team did an outstanding job. So we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and on top of that, we had no federal award findings. So to not have a single audit on a regular basis and to come out with nothing in those top 3 categories says a lot about your organization, and that you value making sure you're following proper procedures and the rules related to all of your funding, but specifically for the federal piece to the grant awards. So we did have one management comment related to policies and procedures, and this specifically came up because of the single audit. There's some more checking that we have to do within policies and procedures, and so we have a couple of recommendations. The first being that some of the policies and procedures reference back to old OMB circulars, which isn't the end of the world, but really all of those references should be updated to the new what's called uniform guidance, so that there's no question that you do know for sure which one you're following. And then within the procurement policy related to contractors and contract selection, there are some requirements within that uniform guidance to have specific things delineated in your policy that we're missing. So we would just recommend that you take a look at the requirements and make sure that those are factored in. But overall, very well done. Making it through the audit and the single audit. It's always a pleasure to be here and to work with your team. Sherry's great. We had a small blip while she was getting over an illness, so the audit was a little bit delayed, but we made it to the May meeting. So I'm happy to answer questions or provide more feedback on any areas that you have.
You said, like you're referring to the OMB, what's the old OMB, what's OMB?
OMB, Office of Management and Budget
Thank
at the
you.
federal level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you describe the procurement policy a little more? Like, what does that entail?
So the procurement policy outlines the way that you are going to spend dollars in the process for approving payments, essentially. So the piece that's missing is the uniform guidance talks about specifically when you're putting things out to bid, making sure that within your policy you've considered contractor selection and various elements of what you're going to consider when it comes to contractor selection. So that's the biggest piece. But overall procurement is how you're going to spend your dollars and what your control process is as you're doing that.
So an example of that would
Yeah.
be, at the federal level, you are prohibited from awarding a contract to I'll call vendor, that's been disbarred. That vendor is not allowed to work with the federal government, and therefore the locals that have access to federal money can't award contracts to a vendor that's been disbarred. And at a local level, if you're talking about just property tax monies, for instance, while it may be a good idea to look at those kind of things, there is no prohibition for awarding a contract to a company that has been disbarred at the federal level. One example. So in Ms. Barnes' example, what do we have in writing and on the checklist that says we've looked at Acme Construction Company and looked at the federal disbarment list and they are not there? Check the box type of thing. And it goes beyond that, but that's just
No,
one example.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will comment briefly, and this isn't on your work, but it gives me ideas for stuff that we see. It's really nice to see the breakdown of expenditures and income kind of in high categories. And I know we kind of know that through the reporting we get from the organization. But my thought process as I'm looking at this is looking at roads, for example. Roads are important to this board. Is what this picture doesn't show in general fund graphs is it doesn't show us all the places that we're putting money into roads. So for example, EDA, it'd be nice to see it all put together, big picture, so we could see how we're doing on roads over time, or how we're doing on whatever it is.
Create a report, yeah.
Because it's real nice to see it
Yeah.
for general fund, but I want to see it for all the different pots of money that we're spending.
And if I may, before
Yeah.
we move on, although Ms. Bard acknowledged it, I'd like to as well. Ms. Sherry Teal, our finance director, who's the lead within the organization, through this whole audit process, the work she did, along with her team, Hannah Lynch, our accounting specialist, and then by extension, everyone else in the organization that does the things the way we're wanting them to be done on a daily basis, so that when we go to pull data out of our financial systems and construct financial statements and then have those be audited, they come out looking the way they did tonight. And so I want to particularly thank and recognize Sherry Teal for those efforts.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to both of you for your presentations. Yeah, but don't feel the need to stay.
You know I'll exit.
Yeah, okay.
Good night.
That brings us to item 6 on our agenda, public hearings, of which we have none. So we'll move straight to public comment, which is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up public comment at 7:45 p.m.
Sorry, there's nobody online.
Let the record show nobody's connected remotely, and all the guests that were here have now left. So, last call on public comment. Director Teal getting up for public comment? No? Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close public comment at 7:45 p.m. Takes us to reports, boards, and comments. Current list of boards and commissions. Note, board review, we talked about last time that we needed to fill a spot, but it'd be nice to have an alternate. I got word from front office this evening that we did receive an application for the board review. Being that we were a light board and it's not urgent, I thought we'd wait till our next meeting when we have more of us here to even try to deal with that. And then it would be nice to get additional people in the ZBA, at least as alternates, right?
Yes, yes.
You didn't have a meeting last night, did
I
you?
haven't had one since I joined.
Okay. And I believe that's all the current openings unless somebody is aware of something else. See the monthly activity report in your packet. If you have questions, now's the time. I mean, obviously you can ask questions later directly to our manager if you want. That takes us to 9C on the agenda. Planning Commission, EDA, and ZBA updates by Community and Economic Director, Development Director, Mr. Nanny. Director Nanny, I should call you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. A couple of quick updates. Our EDA board did meet on May the 20th, just last Tuesday, and they had a couple of items on their agenda. One, May is the month that they elect their officers for the year. It should be no surprise, but the current officers were re-elected, so Tom Kikwan will continue to be the chair, and Brian Milkey will continue to serve as vice chair of our EDA board. The other item on their agenda was a closed session to consider the purchase of real property and to consider an appraisal related to real property in the DDA districts. They did vote to go into closed session, consistent with the Open Meetings Act, and the closed session was held for that purpose. When they came out of closed session, they did adopt a motion to direct staff to proceed with a possible property purchase. So there's more to come on that, but that was the main business of the EDA board. The Planning Commission met the same night, May 20th. They had a couple of items on their agenda. One was continuing a discussion about gunsmiths. This is an item that was brought to staff's attention related to the interaction between our zoning ordinance and federal firearms licensing requirements. And we have a gentleman that was looking to be a registered firearms dealer in the township. He wanted to do this out of his home. And he was concerned, our ordinance requires a special use permit, which is a public hearing process. And he was concerned about that public hearing notice going out to both to everyone within 300 feet. It also is published in the newspaper, posted on our website, and the potential challenges, safety challenges that may come from making it very obvious that he has or would have firearms in his home, even if they are kept properly in accordance with those federal regulations. So the Plan Commission was invited to look at this issue, and both at the April meeting and the May meeting, they held a pretty extensive discussion over what might happen with this. What we're talking about here is realize that what our ordinance calls gunsmiths. We're really talking about federal licensed firearms dealers, those that may repair, make, or sell firearms out of their home. So this is in the agricultural district, in rural residential districts. Essentially, it's a home occupation activity. As I said, right now that we require that public hearing process. Plan Commission did come to a general consensus to look at an amendment to move these activities out of the special use category. They would still be regulated as home occupation, but no longer need a public hearing process for that. So that will be a future amendment. As we talked about during that meeting, this is something that we'll group together with maybe a few other housekeeping items that have come up that zone administrator and I kind of keep track of that we might update in the ordinance, and we'll put those items together some future time to bring an amendment forward for consideration. So the other item on their agenda is related to master plans. The city has been working on a master plan update. They're focusing on their Mission Street corridor, and it has reached a point where they have distributed that draft plan out for review and comment by the surrounding jurisdictions, which is us, and also by the county and several other entities that Michigan Planning and Enabling Act requires them to share the plan with for comments. So the Plan Commission did receive that information at their May meeting, and it began review of those updates. We did identify and discuss some concerns with their transportation plan policy changes. So there are several items in their concern. One is a missing item, actually. It used to be in their master plan. It's a high priority to extend Broadway Street west to Lincoln Road. Interestingly, in this plan, that was left out. I'm expecting that's probably an oversight, but nonetheless, it was not in the plan anymore. And that's something we'd like to see in that plan, still as a priority. It's important that it's in the city plan, actually, because kind of a quirk in the State Planning Act allows the city, under what's called their future streets plan, to identify areas even outside their jurisdiction where streets should be extended. And if it's in the city's master plan to extend it, that actually has a little bit stronger legal standing. Essentially reserves that space for future roads, and the idea is that any development activity that would happen should respect that reservation, even though there's not a dedicated right-of-way there yet. So that's an element we'd like to see in that plan. There were several other items that came up, and there's going to be further discussion at their June meeting about that. The city's master plan update is on their website. If you can just Google City of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and 2050 master plan, and you'll find a great site with a great page that they've created that includes both the current plan, from which was adopted in 2020, the proposed updates, and the summary, a very nice, very concise summary of the changes that they're proposing. So those were the Plan Commission's items. The other item I just want to bring to your attention actually is a sidewalk project. I just want to mention our East Bluegrass Road sidewalk project that we've been working on for a while now is out for bid. So this would be basically taking care of two missing chunks by the Indian Hill Shopping Center, the section from Mission Street at the intersection across the Red Lobster property, which is a very challenging section to do. And then a shorter, another section on to the west side of Indian Hills there, to their, I'm sorry, east side of Indian Hills, to their east property line, that would connect to some additional sidewalk sections that are expected to be developed as part of private development projects. So that's out for bid. The bids are scheduled to be open on June the 10th here in the building. So, we will see what bids come in for that.
That's the north side or south side of Bluegrass?
This is on the south side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. Board member reports, item 9D on the agenda. Trustee Thering?
I am good. Mr. Nanny did an excellent job.
Yeah. Clerk Cody? Trustee Lay?
We had a couple things happen, because last week you and I attended the 2% awards ceremony, which was amazing. We got our grants for our improvements to the park system and for the batting cage, which was very exciting. And then we had our intergovernmental meeting today, which we had here. We hosted. It's the first time we were all live since COVID. And it was attended by representatives from the county, the city, and the tribe, and us.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into any more detail, or?
I thought there were a couple things.
There were
that
some
were
really cool things. The county talked to us about how they actually had residuals left over from the jail project, which they're moving into a capital improvement fund, or they've proposed to do that. It hasn't been approved yet, I don't think. But, what was the other one they talked about?
Couple notes that I had regarding the county administration building.
Oh,
They've remediated for asbestos, et cetera. They have gone out, and this has kind of been public, so maybe you're aware of it, but they've gone out for engineering bid to get a cost on building new. And I think the thought process there is just to make sure that they have everything in front of them before they make any final decisions. So what they're not doing is making a decision to build new or stay in the county building that's there, but look at the data and then decide. Is that a reasonable take?
Yeah, that's a reasonable take. They also are looking at getting they're getting a new software to be able to do budget projections for various, future planning purposes. It's called, was it Synergy? No. Scenario, which was very interesting looking. The city talked about Maureen Eke from Mount Pleasant spoke to us about a proposed project to add a bike lane through Veitz Wood, and how that is that's not being met with very much public enthusiasm. Quite the contrary, people don't want it, and trying to come up with an alternative for a way to connect the big bike system throughout this area, and without damaging the nature preserve there.
Yeah, and the pushback, if I may.
Yes,
the
go ahead.
pushback in the trail was not for not support of a trail.
Yes.
It was because of wanting to protect those woods as a preserve.
So
I think she said they actually voted that down
they
last night,
voted
right?
it down, and then Brian actually suggested we look at Lincoln as an alternative route. So that she got very excited about that.
Well, I didn't suggest Lincoln. I suggested maybe that we could work together
We'll
to
work together.
find another path.
Sorry, my bad.
But that is the natural inclination to think that. There's some challenges that would be
Yeah.
in Lincoln, but. I'm looking at my notes too, if that's okay if I piggyback on you.
I don't have any, I left my notes at home. I felt really dumb. Eric Rodriguez for the tribe talked to us, is that right? That's his name, right? Okay. Talked to us about some of the projects they're working on with the casino and some changes that are coming to their C-suite, which they have not announced yet, so I'm not going to say anything.
What's a C-suite?
Their C-suite, their CEO, CFO.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then some other projects they're working on to improve the property in general, like some expansions as far as indoor concert facilities, some other things that they want to do to generate more tourism dollars for the area. And then some challenges they're facing due to the political climate of the current administration and some issues with the federal government. And then we talked about our website and some other things that we're doing.
The only thing that I would add is, we did talk about the CRC,
Yes.
and that the work that the organization's been doing, Mark in particular, of trying to find out who the appointees to that board are. At this point, we've identified enough to have a quorum, and additional work is being done to fill in the rest of those gaps. And there was general support from all involved that we continue to move forward so that they can stand up again.
And why do we need them to stand up? Renaissance.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think you're all aware, but Isabella is a safety issue in front of Renaissance. So 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it gets backed up. We've long conversations about how to deal with that safety-wise, and the tribe has also noticed that. And last fall, Erica Rodriguez approached me and indicated that they want to see what they can do to get that done, get a safety solution done. And what was being proposed at the time was looking at an alternate route to get the traffic off of Isabella. So what's being thought of at this point is, if you think of the drive that's on the CRC, as you come in by the Discovery Museum and then you turn into that drive and then you go into the parking lots, that drive just dead ends. That could be extended to bring traffic off of Isabella, bring them around the back, and then exit back into Isabella on the north side of Renaissance.
That would be one way?
What's that?
Would be one way?
That would be a one-way.
Okay.
That property where that drive is owned by the CRC. And so to be able to pursue this solution, we need the CRC to be involved and make some decisions to allow Township and whoever to get on their property, get easements, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm sorry, refresh me, CRC?
I'm gonna get it right
County
here.
Road Commission, no.
Cultural and Recreation
Oh.
Commission, so that's, you can think of it as Maury Courts and the ice
Okay,
rink
yes.
and the,
Thank you.
it is a public board of which 6 bodies are members of. This was made in 1990, I think, the agreement. So it's the Township, Union Township, Chippewa Township, the City of Mount Pleasant, the county, Mount Pleasant Schools, and CMU.
Okay.
Each are supposed to put one person on that board.
Okay.
We have 4 or 5 that we know. 4.
4 that I'm certain of.
So that board hasn't been active recently.
Okay.
And so we need them to we need them to come to the assist, and
Sure.
if
That's
they
probably
would.
not the only issue that they could be dealing with in our whole area.
Right.
Once they're, I'll say live, they have a meeting date, they have their house, in order to conduct business, then Union Township is going to approach the CRC seeking formal permission that us and our contractors, partners, can access their property so we can begin to do some design work. So we're gonna have to get on there and take measurements, find out what's underground and do the things that you need to do to start constructing what a road may look like as you come off of Isabella, go around the back of the CRC, which is the front of Maury Courts,
Okay.
and then, so you'd be exiting off of Isabella, re-entering Isabella at the light,
Right.
traffic light of Broadway. And I'm not sure which way the exit,
Right, right.
you do it north and then exit south or vice versa.
Okay.
But it would be one way. Been some talk of some 2% money that can help with that build, but we can't do anything until we have permission of the property owner
Right.
to do a
Okay.
certain amount of work.
Okay.
That's why I want them
Whole.
alive and
Yeah.
seated and
Right.
operating.
The other thing that I thought was really was a point of interest was the other CRC that the
Right.
CMU president has. I think it's been kind of his initiative to try to create collaboration between the various local governments and the college, the university, to try to help build a good working relationship that's collaborative.
The acronym CRC in that case is Community Relations Committee.
Which
Okay.
sounds
I just
fun.
came from the
And-
hospital board, there's a lot of acronyms there too.
Our manager is one of the board members on that. I think they said there was 23 or 28 on that
28, I thought.
large committee. So Eric Rodriguez was one of those.
Mhm. Brian.
Brian Smith, the administrator controller for the county, is a member. I think it's about half of CMU appointees, and then the rest are involved in local government or something some way.
And they're working with the tourism, what is it, the Bureau of Conventions, to try to create an event calendar and some other cool things that they're working on.
There's approximately 24 members of that committee, generally split evenly between local governments / nonprofits such as the United Way. I think the foundation has a seat on that committee.
Yeah.
And then private sector, Rick McGurk's on that committee. Another gentleman, I can't think of his name, that's clearly in the private sector, maybe in the event business. And then, of course, several, if not more, members of Central Michigan University. And this committee was put together to help effectuate CMU's strategic plan, and item number 2 of their strategic plan has to do with interactions with the local community. And I don't want to say improve them, because that would imply that they're bad.
Right.
There's a ton of work that goes on, particularly between the city and the CMU, welcome home weekends, all those kind of things. But just to continue to advance those relationships.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
That's everything. It's a big meeting. It's like 2 hours.
It was good.
Yep.
Treasurer Rogers?
I was out of town for the Isabel Road Commission, so I understand you
I did go.
and Tim were there, yep.
Yeah, but Tim took notes because I knew he was the appointed liaison for
okay.
it, so I sat and enjoyed the meeting.
Okay, so we'll wait for his notes, or you wanna give?
We'll let him do it because he
Sure.
took diligent notes, and Director Smith was there as well, and she takes great notes.
Okay.
But I just was taking an easy morning at being at the meeting,
There you
so I shouldn't report on it.
Good notes.
And then the only thing other that I would like to add on the 2% distribution, I did send an email out, right, to the board?
go. Yes.
Okay. I mean to do that as soon as I get back, but as always, amazing. It's really a cool event. It was Eric Rodriguez had sent out emails to everybody but they had switched over apparently some computer systems or another, and not everybody got emails. So Miranda and I found out the afternoon before that the distribution was happening. Luckily, the three of us made it, but attendance was half of what it typically was, but still it was a great event.
Some of the programs that they've given money to are so cool.
Yeah.
The running list, they had a list of everything that was getting grant money, and it ran the gamut. It was amazing.
And yay, McDonald Park's going to get some upgrades. So thank you, Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. I appreciate it. I gave them props at our EDA meeting, and then the chair of the EDA, Tom Keequam, I'm going to share this anecdote, sorry, happened to share a story. He was on the original committee that came up with the 2% idea. At the time, the state was wanting all of certain funds from the casino. And he said, well, we'll never see that money locally if you take it all. How about we do 2% to the local community? And so Tom was involved in the original legislation that came to pass out of that.
Surprising, yeah. Good.
Pretty cool story. And apparently, we are the model. That is not something that was happening anywhere else in the U.S., and a lot of communities look at us for that type of model, and because we have been fortunate to the tune of almost $300 million given through 2% over since they started it.
To, not just Union.
Not just Union,
Yeah, yeah.
but yes,
Isabella County.
Isabella County.
Yeah.
That's a huge number.
Yeah, it
that
is.
goes to our community that we wouldn't have had. So, thank you. Okay, moving on. All good stuff.
Yeah.
Consent agenda. Happy to entertain any motions.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
A motion by Rogers, support by Cody. Any discussion? Warrants?
I did those, and they looked beautiful. Once I found the cover sheet, which was hiding underneath another sheet.
No issues then?
No issues.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor of consent agenda being approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to new business 11A. Review and approve final policy governance ends 1.0 to 1.5 changes that we spent the last two meetings working on. I trust everybody's had a chance to kind of go through those. Are there any comments or
Move to approve for
corrections
cha-
from what you see?
No, I didn't see anything.
Everything I looked at, and I kept my notes and kind of checked. Seems like it had it all.
We need Tim here.
Right. Well, he's responsible for some of these, for sure.
Move to approve the item per amended in our last meeting.
The ends.
Yes.
Policy, yes.
Yes.
What is it? Just so I get it right. Policy 1.0. Motion by Rogers,
Support.
support by Cody. I guess I already asked if there was comments on it, and I didn't. No corrections to be made.
We had
I
a pretty
appreciate-
thorough discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
For
that's
sure.
good.
And I think it's a better document.
For sure.
Okay, all in favor of approving the modifications to our ends, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to new business B. Policy Governance 2.3, Compensation and Benefits. Mr. Stuhlgar, this is yours, if you don't mind.
Thank you, and just before I get started on that, with your approval a moment ago, I'll end up making these changes in the primary document and get that transmitted to all of you in fairly short order. So the next item on your agenda is the annual review of policy governance 2.3, titled Compensation and Benefits. This is when the Board of Trustees can look at policy 2.3, which is applicable to the administration, and review our compliance with that policy. The policy at its highest level states that with respect to employment, compensation, and benefits to employees, consultants, contract workers, volunteers, collective bargaining units, the township manager shall not cause or allow jeopardy to fiscal integrity or public image. So that's the high level. And then there are 5 or 6, depending on how you count it, sub-policies that further refine that higher level that I just read. For instance, one of the sub-policies says that the manager shall not promise or imply permanent or guaranteed employment to anybody, shall not establish current compensation and benefits which deviate in a material manner from the geographic and professional market for which these skills are typically employed in. I won't read all of them. I interpret this policy to say or indicate that the Board of Trustees wants to ensure that the township manager, for one, does not change his or her compensation package except as consistent with what's going on with other employees, and keeping in mind that the board and the manager negotiate an annual compensation. And the only deviation between me and the rest of the organization, other than relative nominal pay, is usually in the form of amount of vacation that I'm able to obtain. And I do also get a car allowance as part of that contract that's not available to any of the other. But in terms of further interpretation, not implying or guaranteeing employment to anyone, making sure that we can retain and attract good talent, so our benefit packages, our salary policies need to be, and all this presumes an ability to pay. You know, there's always a revenue limitation on any of this. And that the manager is not to create any long-term obligations that cannot be paid from current revenues. So that's how I interpret that policy. The justification that I often use, because I think the policy, not only content-wise is, I think, a very good document, but in terms of construct, it's clearly written in many areas, and this is one of them. So I justify the reasonability of the interpretation because it's pretty clear as written and as read. I did have some data listed here. The board and the manager negotiated my compensation package in November of 2024. It was effective 1/1/25. That's on file with the clerk's office. To promote and retain key employees, we had put together, and I'd come to the board initially with what I called a department director employment agreement that was brought to the board for the board to provide permission to me to offer this to these department directors. So the board reviewed the content of that agreement. They approved it, and then it went into effect for 2 of our 3 department directors, effective January 1, 2025. The 3rd department director chose not to execute it, That was their right all along. No harm, no foul. We are in the beginning stages of a classification and compensation study that will be concluded by the end of the summer. That will help inform the organization for a number of things. Collective bargaining that'll be going on around that same time. That study is also looking at all the positions in the organization, full-time employees, permanent part-time employees, elected official compensation, trustees as one group, and then individually treasurers, clerks, and supervisors. Also having them look at, I'll call it per diem pay for some of our boards get per meeting pay. How's that stack up these days? Because, in some cases, and I think the EDDA is one, state law prohibits payment.
Oh.
So that's why they don't get per diem meeting pay. But on the other hand, it allows for planning commission members, board review members to get paid for, those volunteers. So seeing how those line up. So it'll be across the board, that study. All but the department directors and the township assessor, all the employees other than, I guess, those 5 positions, 3 department heads, the manager, and the assessor, everybody else, every other full-time permanent employee is a member of one of 2 collective bargaining units. And those contracts expire at the end of this year. We'll be going through and negotiating those again, so that speaks to one of the items in the policy. Those contracts end up being ratified by the members of the bargaining group, and then they're brought to the Board of Trustees for their approval. I think it's in a June meeting, if I have it right on my calendar, that I'll be at one of our board meetings, be requesting to go into closed session so we can talk about some strategic parameters that are then provided to me, so I have some knowledge and basis to negotiate from. So that'll be coming up. We talk about ability to pay and having benefits that are competitive with the market. Healthcare is the big one. We do share the premium expense between the employer and the employee. Currently, that cost share is 89.5% borne by the employer, 10.5% by the employee, and I'm sorry, that was the level that was in effect in 24. It's 88, 12, and 25, and I'm not sure what it'll be in moving forward, but it certainly wouldn't be any less than 88, 12, and my guess it'll continue to move where there's, till we feel we've reached the correct balance for all concerned. All the positions that came open and that were filled during 2024 were done via a competitive process. We use an interview team here internally. Most of our positions, like I said, are part of the bargaining group, so there's certain requirements that and steps that you have to follow that are outlined in that document. All of those were followed. So my conclusion is that the township manager is in compliance with the policy as stated and is supported by the data that I have here. I do have a recommended change that you may or may not want to consider, but Section 2.3.4 states that the manager shall not create obligations over a longer term than revenue can be safely projected, comma, in no event longer than 1 year and in all events subject to losses in revenue. And I took a look at that, and probably because of the time of year it is, my reading of that could be that you can't have anything more than a 1-year labor agreement, and that would be no good.
Yeah.
And my other reading of that is that, and the collective bargaining agreement's a perfect example, if you have a 2% raise in year 1 and whatever it is in year 2, 2%, 2.5%, but all of a sudden because state share revenue went down, year 2 has less revenue than year 1. And if we were to continue to pay those pay increases, then I think we could arguably be in violation of that policy. So you see that here, maybe a bit technical, I don't know. But I recommended adding a clause to the end of the existing sentence. It's in blue underlined, accepting collective bargaining agreements, service contracts, because those are often multi-year as well, and multi-year construction contracts.
It's a lot better.
So anyways, be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
In your suggestion of this change for 2.3.4, are you aware, or could you think of an example where the exceptions that are listed there, that those would not ever come before the board anyways for approval?
Well, we know the collective bargaining agreements will always come to the
Right.
board. A multi-year service contract,
I guess if it's under 20,000.
if the annual amount was under 20,000, that may not come to the board. A multi-year construction contract, that's normally of size, so that would come to the board. So I think by and large, all of these things would come to the board.
But it's confusing for it to say in no event longer than 1 year when we know the
Right.
collective bargaining is more than one. So that's
So-
confusing.
I do agree with that. I was just thinking as I'm looking at the exceptions that, in my mind, I was thinking that they would all be coming before the board automatically, but the one case that you listed, I came up as I asked, which is service contract under 20,000.
And maybe where you're going is, if they're coming to the board, and if the board's approving the collective bargaining agreement, then it's arguably, the board has acknowledged the limitation in the policy, taken action to approve it, so therefore we're not in violation of the policy. Maybe that's where you're going, I
That's
don't know.
kind of where I was going with that. I don't have exception to the exceptions listed here.
Do we want to identify, do we want to just identify the possibilities?
Well, that's what I tried to do. You can't identify all of them,
Sure.
probably.
Right, so therefore, we're not having to think about it, it's actually in our policy of a possible exception.
With board approval.
Well, and that was my other thought, was with board approval, the only exception to that would be service contracts that are not very expensive. We've already given latitude
Right.
for the manager to,
I know what bargaining, or the collective bargaining, whatever, are they always 3 years? I don't think they are they?
not necessarily.
What's that?
Bargaining agreements, the question was, are they always 3 years? And
No, but I like them to be 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want to keep doing it every year.
Yeah, they're time consuming. and,
Sure.
um, unless there's a extraordinary reason, which in the past there has been. We've had 1-year contracts to allow for implementation of compensation studies and then allowing for
Right.
some settling,
Right.
for things to settle. When we introduced the healthcare cost sharing, we might add a 1 or 2 year contract to get people used to that.
Right.
But with all that behind us, I think every 3 years works for, it's a good rotation for the township, both the employees and the employer.
So my take on this is, if I was the manager, and this was one of my guardrails, I would like the additional language, because then I don't feel like, in the case of a multi-year construction contract, that I'm violating the policy.
Right,
So I appreciate the addition
yeah.
of the verbiage here. And I think really in all cases, with the exception of one, which would be small service contracts, we're still gonna,
You have to approve it anyway, yeah.
it's still gonna
I
come in
like, I
front of
like
us.
that added because it makes it more clear.
I would be very supportive of that as
In
well.
no event longer than 1 year. Well, no event sounds kind of concrete, so just, I like that
Right.
added.
So if what I'm hearing, there's general agreement, there may be a motion to amend policy, governance policy, section 2.3.4
I
to
move
read
to,
as,
right. I move to revise, is that the right word, revise, or
Amend,
revise
revise.
policy? Section 2.3.4 to read, create obligations over longer term than revenues can be safely projected in no event longer than 1 year and in all events subject to losses in revenue, excepting collective bargaining agreement, service contracts, and multi-year construction contracts.
Support. Do you want me to make that whole thing like in the motion or just with the addition of,
With the addition of, that's fine.
right? Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yep.
Or do you want like the addition of and then the new
With the addition,
piece?
I move the,
Or do you want the whole thing written in it?
No, put the addition, accepting collective bargaining agreement, service contracts, and multi-year construction contracts to section 2.3.4.
Okay.
Sorry. You're writing a book over there.
So we have a motion by Rogers, support by Cody. Other discussion?
Does that meet the manager's?
It's the manager that recommended the language,
you know,
so.
I'm just based on our after
Right.
our discussion.
Yeah. So that's a
Yes.
reasonable question.
yes.
Hearing no more discussion, all in favor of the motion to amend section 2.3.4 as reflected on page 34 of the packet, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. With
Thank
that,
you,
we'll-
and I'll make those changes the same time I make the ones in 11A.
Okay.
Perfect. Report was due in May, still May, right?
Yes,
Did
3
you-
more days.
I hope you looked through the interpretation. It was laid out there, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you feel that it's justified, proof is provided to explain why the interpretation is reasonable?
Yes.
Do you feel the interpretation missed anything in the description that the policy tries to cover?
Well, now we do.
Yeah.
Well, we just fixed that, so
Thoughts?
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
the thought.
you could say yes, but corrected.
Right, fair enough.
With corrections.
So, I mean, the real issue is, do you feel that
Now we don't.
anyone feel the organization's not in compliance?
No.
Anything in the policy that you worry about that's not clearly addressed? We just addressed
I think
one.
we addressed it.
I have one question, 2.3.5.1. Each of these are, if you look at the heading for those bullet points, the 2.3s, it says further without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, the manager shall not. And then it says list the bullet items. So shall not change his or her compensation, shall not promise to imply permanent or guaranteed employment, right?
Yeah.
And then when I get to 2.3.5.1,
Yeah, that's not good. How's that in there?
yeah, I didn't quite follow, the manager shall not, exception township manager contract benefits. And I thought there could be a language correction here.
Yes.
I'm just trying
'Cause I'm not
to
sure-
figure out what it's
I-
trying to
I
do.
think-
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah,
Why would that be there?
it is under 2.3.5, and maybe because it's not indented that it's weird, because we have A and B under there too. I'm not sure what this is. I was hoping somebody would tell me.
We'll come back to it.
I,
It just
I
grammatically
seem to
makes no
understand
sense.
2.3.5 A and B.
yes.
Yes.
The only thing that 2.3.5.1 is acknowledging it, whether it's worded well or not, what it's trying to do is acknowledge that the township manager shall not do a bunch of things except for when it comes to the township manager's contractual benefits that are negotiated between the board and the manager.
That's kind of what I feared it was alluding to too, but it wasn't
Yeah.
It's not yet. It's
not.
Sorry,
clear.
it needs more words.
There's a lack of, there's a lack of words.
Let me just
So I'm not the only one that was lost on this then.
Yeah.
I just want to see when
That was changed?
that might have been changed.
Yeah, I don't have a recollection of that.
It's because all of
Well-
the other ones are verbs, like it's action items.
Right.
And then it's like exception.
Well,
You shall not exception.
is there, are the.
Which I think it should be under 2.3.5. It should be indented like A and B are. So there's an exception to 2.3.5, I think.
Well, somewhere in our policy manual, the township manager's contractual benefits are spelled out clearly, right?
Correct.
Why do we need that there then? Because he
Yeah.
can make changes there.
That has been in there since this was adopted.
Originally?
Originally. It's not part of the history change. to
Okay.
keep track of. So if you think it's if nobody knows what it means,
Well, if it's spelled out
and
somewhere
if we
else.
think it's redundant,
Mhm.
then it could be removed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd say excise it.
Any
Okay,
objections to
motion?
that?
If it's spelled out elsewhere, then I feel like it's redundant.
Now would be a great time to make another change since we're
Yep.
open to motions.
I move to change, to remove rather, the section 2.3.5.1, exception township manager contract benefits.
Support.
Motion by Lay, support by Cody. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to remove section 2.3.5.1 from our policy governance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. I think we're good there then, huh?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, moving on, excuse me, to 11C on our agenda, Policy Governance 3.10, Cost of Governance. This is kind of our wheelhouse. Let me get my notes out here. I'm assuming you've all read through this.
I have one
Forgive me.
thing.
Forgive me, I need to catch up here. Let me ask the question. I really want my notes. What do I do with that? I'm sorry. I'll go from memory. Do you believe the board is in strict compliance with the policy?
I think we have to, don't we have to have the manager's interpretation on that first, or no?
No.
The
It's
3.10?
all of our interpretation, I guess.
Oh,
I had one thing that I thought might be beneficial to add to the second section, is it the one that we're going over, the governance?
Yeah, let's get to that. But do you feel we're not in compliance or compliance?
I think we're in compliance.
we're on 3.1.0?
Yes.
I think there's confusion.
Did I do something wrong?
No,
I
no,
don't want
no,
you doing.
no. I want to be in compliance with everything, and it's confusing to me what meetings actually qualify for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you for the
Yes.
clarification. So you're confused whether or not we're in compliance because you don't fully understand what's there.
I don't think it's clearly spelled out what is allowed and what's not allowed, what meetings qualify, maybe what don't. It's like, there are other, like, well, I'm gonna go to, the PTA, no, that doesn't, I mean, I'm just being
Right.
facetious, but, yeah.
Trustee Lay, this is,
Actually, my issue was we need to add the CRC to our list.
oh, okay.
Yes.
Let me ask about compliance on this side of the room. To Clerk Cody and Trustee Therian. Do you feel we're in compliance or not?
I think so.
I have a question then, who reviews this to make sure they're all, if all the meetings being requested paid for are in compliance?
We are supposed to, according to the document.
Okay,
So I'll piggyback on you,
okay,
if you don't mind.
nope,
Similar comment, even though I didn't fully understand what you meant by confusing at first. But as I look through it, I'm like, I'm not sure we're in compliance either. I don't think there's attempt to not be in compliance.
no,
It's more of a,
I think it's
how
okay.
do we police this, and is it unclear in places?
Right,
And I can use examples, and it probably, a good example of that might be CRC. Is not listed. It's I
Because we
think,
added it later.
yep,
if it's okay, why are we not in compliance from our, at least our two perspectives? I think the document's just unclear. So 3.10.1 is the original documentation that I think was in the original policy governance. Just a little history.
sure,
And back in 2014-ish, this board decided to add in the 3.10.2 and 3, which it really has to do with the meeting pay, compensation.
right,
And that was because we wanted to clearly define what the expectations are, and why we do it. And the goal is listed pretty well here. It says the intent is to provide policy that encourages board members to participate in, learn, and share in the many township-related and intergovernmental meetings, as well as educational sessions or classes. And I think that we're in compliance with. But because the document's a little wonky in places, it gets confusing.
sure,
So, is everybody clear? We're, at least from my perspective, we're supposed to police ourselves, right?
Mhm.
In our packet, we see
Everybody's
who's
little-
requesting meeting
yeah.
pay. But I will admit that I've never checked to see if anybody has more than 8 education classes
Over the course of a
of a year.
12 months,
Yeah,
how am I to remember that
Right.
maybe somebody is, there, I think it's great that we're allowed to have so many trainings that the township will pay for. If the number's 8 or whatever, you can go to 20. You just pay for them yourself, is that correct?
no, you just don't get meeting pay.
You just don't get meeting pay. Okay,
At least that's how I always interpreted it.
okay. So you can go to 20,
But you're not
but
getting,
I don't know that you hit 8.
right.
How do I know that you hit 8?
And I'll admit that I've probably
Yeah, I
violated,
totally didn't
I've
pay
probably
attention to
violated
that.
this as well. This is one of the, I took some notes on this. And in all fairness, Lori and I have had some conversation in the managers meeting.
Yep.
Looking at some of this.
Yep.
So as we were looking at it, that's where some of this is coming from. Okay, so we've had some conversation already.
I've had citizens email, or I guess contact me about that as well.
Really? Wow.
Yes, believe it or not.
Interesting. So, as I went through this again, I realized I've been in non-compliance because I get paid for board of review, which is during the day. And it says supervisors, clerk, and treasurers are exempt from 8:30 to 4:30.
Yeah, I don't claim those ones, so
The intent there, because I was one of the co-authors of this originally, the intent was, at that time, so this is back
yeah.
in the day, when the organization was not as mature as it is now. The supervisor had that office that I don't get anymore, and was in there 40 hours a week or very much, right? And so the 3 officers that are elected were doing a lot more in the office. And so it was felt that their compensation, which was even more then, because the supervisor then was making almost 3 times what the supervisor's salary is now, they were being compensated through their salaries for daytime activities, right? Because they had that part of their day job was office. Well, that's not how we operate anymore. And so I think, like, if you went to intergovernmental, I would expect that you would submit that, even though it's during the day. You haven't, though.
No.
See, I did, because I didn't even
Yeah, I
see
don't,
this in here.
because that's what it says, so I don't.
Right. And
So,
I
mean,
And I guess
don't
we
know.
need to decide if that's okay or not okay, what's the right thing for this
Well,
board.
what you said in history is then they had, their compensation was higher because they were here all the time.
Correct.
And that's not the case now. We're here as needed. So it's, I think, for the road commission, for an hour, and I report back and it's $50, I'm like, you know, it's not a huge deal, but I guess for me as a treasurer, if I spend a whole day in Ann Arbor, that's $75, I'm like, that seems pretty reasonable for my time. That's why I did that $7. I'm like, I mean, it's training, but I don't know, it's just a gray area, and it just needs, it's very gray.
yeah. and
It's in
classes during
CRC,
the
some of
day.
some of the
If
boards.
class is in the day, you don't normally claim it, but that's an entire day of training something.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's your call.
And I think you should, for stuff outside directly, like your elections and stuff, that if you go into road commission like you used to as liaison.
I was in
think.
the nighttime one, or claimed the nighttime
Oh.
one. Yeah, I was very thorough.
Yeah, I've made the mistake sometime in the past, I'm sure, that I've claimed a daytime one, not remembering that part.
Since this is a residual of a different time period, do we
I mean,
want to amend it?
Well, that
Just
was gonna
take
be
it
my
out.
suggestion, was.
Take out the 8 to 4:30.
If I can get a sense, if you're okay with this, if I can get a sense from where we're at, what's important to us, what we want to allow and not allow, I can try to draft from this a proposed working document,
More current.
more current. And that includes,
Changes to the
like
boards?
CRC, the list at the bottom, I almost thought,
Adding that in there.
do we even need that?
What?
Do we even need the list of stuff down there, or do we just say the board will appoint to liaison roles to activities or meetings, however you want to state it, that we think are important?
And then we do it while we're here.
And
like
we do
did.
it, and we make those appointments, and it's up to the board then to decide what's important.
I
The
mean,
road
it does give
commission,
you a guide though, that
It
so you don't
does.
forget,
You're-
you know, or something.
maybe we say may include,
With
may
Such
include
as-
these, yeah, such may include these
Such
types of
as,
things
yeah,
and others.
that-
Others
Yeah.
I would like to
Right.
see it on there, because 10 years from now, none of us are on this
Board,
board,
and I don't
and this
remember.
is,
How about we leave it more open, then we'll just list everything
Such
out and just,
as.
such as,
Yeah.
just so
Such
that-
Or
That's-
maybe amended as new opportunities arise, or
And-
something like that.
Well-
And it does say that others to be added from time to time, but maybe it ought to be just, as long as the board approves it, hey, we need someone that is gonna go to the CRC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're gonna appoint you as the liaison, you have a responsibility now, right? That's that meeting pay, is to be there or find someone
Yep,
to go in your stead if you're not there. And secondly, report back anything that the township should
Right.
be aware of. That,
right.
I mean, that's part of the idea of that meeting pay, was to encourage you to do that job, right? Because it's extra above and beyond our normal trustee
Right.
duties.
So I have issue with, I could circle little things that, I can just give you.
Yeah. Um,
One point, the third bullet point on number 1. Make sure make sure we're in compliance with that. That would make sense. You know, you can go, but you're not getting paid. That one's fine. but
which
that-
one is this? 3 point?
The third bullet point on number 1.
Oh, in addition to township boards and committees?
Oh,
Is that
It's
where we're
under,
reading from?
where are we under? 3.10.3.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. The third bullet point. Just so, because I know that one, I don't think that we've been compliant with that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait.
Yep, that's all I was saying.
Yeah, if you want history on that, the idea was, so in the past, there was no guidelines for meeting pay. It was just, if you go to a meeting, you get paid. Okay, so some people go to a meeting just to get paid, it seemed like. And so even when there was a liaison role, let's say road commission,
Yep.
I would go to the road commission and go, well, I went too, so I'm getting paid too. Well, we don't need to pay another trustee to be there. That's your responsibility. That's
Yep.
why we gave that liaison role to you. But I'm still welcome to go, but I'm not getting the taxpayers to pay for me to go. That was the idea behind it, right or wrong, I'm just trying to
No,
explain
that,
it.
no, it makes sense. That's good.
Any issues with that? Conceptually?
Moving down to
Okay.
number 3 on that same page. It's a little confusing when it says all board members should be paid to attend the Council of Governments, MTA ad hoc, annual MTA conference, annual road commission. So, like, all 7 of us show up, and we all get paid for all those?
Yeah, because they want all of us to go to those.
Okay, all right, good, that makes sense then.
Yeah, and that was,
I mean, that's,
I can only speak to the original intent, that was the intent. was
Okay.
We want you to encourage you to be involved in MTA.
yep, okay.
Yep.
But
Can I
then,
speak to number 3 while we're at it?
Sure?
So number 3, all members shall be paid to town council of governments, clear. MTA ad hoc meetings, I think that would be better described as the Isabella County MTA chapter,
okay,
because they're held on the same night as the Council of Governments. Council of Governments is held monthly.
okay,
And then in each quarter, one of those council of government meetings, instead of it being a council of government meeting, it's a meeting of the Isabella chapter
MTA,
of the Michigan Township Association.
okay,
And so I think if we said, because they're not ad hoc committees.
Right.
There's an Isabella chapter of the MTA that
Okay.
meets quarterly.
okay.
So if you just said the Isabella County chapter of the MTA, I think that would be helpful. And to my knowledge, there are not, and maybe there must have used to have been, but I'm not aware of 2.
I don't know about that
and
one. That's where I was
going to.
Road
Road
commission?
commissions.
Yeah, we can scratch that.
So I'd strike that if you're gonna get into that.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that one up too.
And then I would strike number 4 altogether,
Yeah,
because
and,
of the 8 to 4:30. That doesn't, that doesn't apply to us.
and I don't know how we deal with all that, because I think, there are things that I do as supervisor that I consider meetings that I would never consider submitting meeting pay for. It's more the liaison roles where I'm appointed to be there on behalf of the township, I'm not just there because I'm supervisor, I'm there because the board said, we want you to be on the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe liaison team, right? And that's how I viewed it before, right or wrong.
That would be meeting pay.
Sorry?
Shouldn't that be meeting pay? if you're assigned to it.
Yes, I'm just telling you, that's how I viewed this,
Yeah, yeah.
and so, as far as what our clerk has done in the past, I would have claimed those, and I'm not saying it's,
I'm fine. What about the clerk meeting? Do you have a supervisor meeting?
no, but we talked about it after the clerk's one, that we, no, we don't. I mean, Council of Governments
You don't do that?
is
I
where,
think we just kind of have to, though, like,
right,
to be on
For
the same
elections.
page kind of thing.
So maybe the three of you can sit down and try to determine what you feel is part of your role, and then what's maybe a little bit outside of it. Like, for example, your organizational meetings that you have is a Tuesday before the meeting. I think that, in my opinion, that's part of your role for the meeting.
right.
But
And-
there are a lot of other things that are addition to benefit
Right.
yourself, but the township. So number 4, I don't even, right now, I think you could get rid of number 4 if you identify what is considered your role and what's considered outside of your role, but that's for the three of you to sit down. Because I do feel there are many things, especially in what you're going through and all the changes in the elections and all the meetings that you've had to have, and some of those I'm sure probably fit in with your role, but when you have how many in a month, I mean, I'm sure you've probably had way more than what would be considered normal.
Like, when I go,
Let me throw this out too.
Sure.
I think you could eliminate 4, and then, if you were so inclined, as a separate exercise, look at what's in 10 and 11 to get to trustee Theron's point, if you want to add or whatever to add. And then there's also language in the policy already, again, to piggyback off your point, anybody can attend any meeting and submit it for meeting pay. And even if it's 180 degrees off from this policy, if the board just approves it at a meeting, then you're going to get paid.
I don't want to encourage that, though.
no, yeah,
But it begins to
Right.
get to
Right.
who wants to
police it, right?
split hairs about a township clerk that in order to do her job needs to be going to a lot of meetings to keep up with the election work.
Right.
You're gonna just go down a big rabbit hole.
Sure.
What is relevant to the job, and the intent of the overall policy, I think, is to encourage interaction, monitoring of other governmental units and quasi, whatever you want to call them. We're all listed in 10 and 11 right now. So you want to be engaged in something outside of just these 4 walls of the township geography. And then the other intent of the policy is to encourage education training, which is distinctly different than going to a bunch of meetings with Mindy about what we're going to do with the election. We're wanting to encourage those things.
Right.
And so I think that's the overall intent. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
keep that in mind. The intent is not to guard against abuse per se.
Just give clarification.
When it was originally written, the intent might have captured more than the 2 things I just mentioned, but maybe we're past that now, and if we fall back into it, we'll have to adjust it again or something.
So, okay, yeah, you go ahead and do what you gotta do, Brian. Supervisor, sorry.
Oh, wait, I was only
Nope.
asking because I didn't know if you guys had those or not. Like
what?
we do, just as
Oh, yeah.
keeping us all on the same page kind of thing.
right.
It's not a mandatory thing that we have to go or we'll be in trouble. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Just
just
helpful.
You assist
that
each
kind,
other,
but I
yeah.
was wondering if you did that too. I didn't say,
Council of
you know,
Governments.
I don't really, you know, I'm like, I'm fine. Because then you can come in and then, you know, hey, I just wanted to say this, this, and this. I have to go, so I just wanted to get you updated on my, you know, portion of it, and then you can leave. I mean, it's not like a meeting
Right.
like this kind of
Right.
thing. You know what I mean?
So
Well,
let me simplify, maybe. I propose taking this list 10 and 11 off. Maybe those are actually very good, because I think lot of this intent is you're either gonna be in a liaison role, in which case we don't wanna pay everybody to go, we want somebody that's the true representative.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're all welcome to go, but you're going to road commission and you're getting compensated for it. Secondly, we do want to encourage just the general stuff like MTA, Council of Governments, those kinds of things. And then thirdly, training. And those all those seem to be pretty straightforward as far as being able to list out by and large. And I think we can all be fairly clear on what things are allowed and which things aren't. And there may be things that come up, but we have to learn how to police.
Yep.
And how do we do the 8, if we do education, maybe we should wait till we get to there, but how do we self-police properly?
I mean, maybe we should revisit this, like, make some tweaks to it and then revisit it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
do some of
it-
the changes
i-
that we
if you-
suggested and then come back. You know, because right now, we're obviously not in compliance with it.
Right. So, can I just ask a couple things? Because then I can try to draft something that's close, at least closer, and then we can work with that. Do you have a lot
Make
of
it
notes
about half
left?
the size
What?
that it
Do
is.
you have a lot of notes
Yeah.
left?
Notes?
Notes, changes.
No, I just have a
Okay.
copy
Hey,
of it.
Brian,
So-
we'll allow that if you can make it half the size that it is.
Maybe we can do that.
Yeah.
No, that was it, yeah.
What is it?
Education 8. Is that a reasonable limit?
I don't have an issue with that.
I don't either. I just want
What?
to I want to lift it up.
You can go to 8, up to 8,
And Tim is
Where does it say that?
number 5.
So Trustee Lannon loves going to education. He's going to continue probably to go to education. He will probably max out past 8 next month or
I was
the
gonna say,
next
has
month.
he not
But-
already?
He might have.
Never noticed that.
My point is, go ahead.
If it's something that,
That's designated for that specific title.
yeah,
I think it's okay. But if it's somebody going, like, that's not a trustee or treasurer going for a treasurer position,
because there's this expense of the joining the class, of the mileage, of the.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you get up to
I mean,
8.
I'm not gonna go to clerk training.
But then again, like, going to the planning commission, like, going to that meeting was awesome. Because I learned so much that I didn't know. And I
Sure.
think everybody should go
Sure.
to that training.
And,
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes.
And
Oh, yes, absolutely.
you got a per diem for going to planning commission as a planning commissioner.
Yeah.
So how does the township pay you? Should they pay you the $50 or should they pay you a planning commissioner per diem? And the tradition has been,
It was always
Planning-
over an hour though, so I mean,
well,
that
okay,
was
75
the
were
piece of
the
it.
planning commissioner.
But I
And
think
we
it
don't spell
was.
that out
I don't know.
well. Board of review gets paid, but
I think
why?
I did it how long it was.
I would say 8 is 8. If you want to go to 8 trainings, so if I wanted to, not that I'm necessarily going to do this, but if I wanted to go to the board of review training, that's one of my 8.
That's the one.
But there is some benefit to that because then I can talk to the citizens about that. As I, having been on the board of review, no longer on the board of review, sometimes you get in interesting conversations at all hours of the day. And they ask, well, geez, my taxes went up. And so the first thing I do is say, you know,
Right.
ask them 3 or 4 questions. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I had in my neighborhood or whatever, in my type of home that are close by, we've had 4 of them sell for whatever, you know.
Would
So there is benefit. 8 is 8.
Would it be okay to like go through this with a management team meeting and then bring it back
Yes.
with our suggestions?
Yep.
Is that okay?
That's perfect.
I mean, that be okay?
Would
yes.
you rather do that than me to try to begin to do something
Yeah.
now?
Yes.
Yeah, if you want
Okay,
to, yeah.
then
Okay.
I can be done now, Because I was only hoping to collect enough data to provide a draft.
I mean, I got a couple of
Okay,
notes,
so
but
let's,
that's about it.
Yeah.
let's the three of us,
Make your
and
notes.
this is good to bring, since Manager Stuhldreher sits in on those meetings, it's also good for them because ultimately the organization writes the payroll. And
Yeah.
they have to know how they're gonna make that payroll.
Right,
Um,
yeah. Good.
And so, good, that sounds good.
That's okay.
We'll work on that, is that good?
Yes.
Any objections? Okay. Then we'll be done with that for now. Thanks, Paul. That brings us to extended public comment. That's restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 9:03 PM. Let the record show nobody is here in attendance physically nor remotely. And so with that, we'll close extended public comment at 9:03 PM, which takes us to item 13 on the agenda, manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher, floor is yours.
Thank you. I have no comments to make.
Vacation was good. Mini vacation.
Yes, I had a nice Memorial Day weekend up north. I
Right,
hope
good.
everybody else did as well, wherever you made plans.
That's right.
Here or anywhere else.
Staycation, projects. Final board member comment, trustee Lay,
I'm good. I talked enough already.
treasurer Rogers,
I'm good, thank you.
trustee Thering,
Good.
clerk Cody.
I'm good.
I'm good too. Happy to entertain a motion for adjournment.
I motion to adjourn.
Support?
Motion by Lay, support by Rogers. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Adjourned at 9:04 PM.
There's no end.